Welcome back, Red Spotter. Let's show you on the Red Spotlight podcast. I'm your host today, Alexis J. Soto, joined by Mr. Peter Martinez. We have a wonderful show for you here on all things movie news and reviews and anything we want to talk about here. Mulan, Mulan, Mulan. Everyone's talking about it for the wrong reasons, obviously, but here we are. We're going to have a movie review on Mulan, as well as discussing all of the drama. Everything from, cheap knockoff Chinese food to concentration camps. All right here. We also have a trailer review for Dune, which has been kind of the only thing Peter Martinez has been looking forward to. So I'm sure that's going to be a lot of fun. John Boyega made a lot of headlines recently going after Disney themselves and accusing them of sidelining diverse characters of color in the Star Wars franchise. Of course, we have, for the first time, major box office numbers as movie theaters have reopened in America to some obviously lackluster results, and we're going to get into all that with Tenet, and as well as trying to figure out what it is that Mulan even did this weekend with its premiere access on Disney+, as well as figuring out maybe a little bit of speculation as to what the hell is going on with The Mandalorian, and where that trailer is. All that and more here on Red Spotlight number 266. This is... Peter, I forget. I think this is probably week 27 of the coronavirus pandemic here in America.
Oh, I don't care.
I know. But I'm just updating the record, right? That's what we're doing here, our usual weekly log. 191,000 dead. So there's that. Also, if for whatever reason you haven't been watching the news, so now we have movie theaters are back up and running. Schools are back up and running. And football is back, because nothing can go wrong there. And the president, I think this week has admitted that he lied repeatedly. He even admitted to, hilariously enough, he said, yeah, I said that. And we even had the tapes, which he himself allowed to happen. Which, why? Anyway, he said, I was downplaying the virus, and this is deadly stuff. It was 5 times deadlier than the flu, when in fact, he would go on the record saying that the flu was worse than coronavirus. I actually have a tweet here that gets it down pretty concisely. 191,000 Americans have died due to COVID-19 this year, and President Trump calls that record, an amazing job we've done, quote unquote, and says his cabinet are individuals doing great work, quote unquote, and not getting enough credit from the news media for, quote unquote, an incredible job they've done.
Do you remember after Hurricane Katrina when, what was his name? George W. Bush. I can't remember who the fuck he turned to. But he was like, oh, you're doing a hell of a job. I think it was like the person in charge of FEMA or something. And like, that was like a fucking scandal. Like, that was the biggest thing in the world. The fact that he told this guy he's doing a hell of a job while he clearly wasn't. Like, but that was, I remember, it must have been a documentary or something where I saw where that guy was like, he's like, that's gonna be fucking written on my gravestone, Here lies so-and-so, you did a hell of a job, or something like that.
Right.
Like, it was such a big deal. Now, like, what is it? We're gonna hit 200,000 pretty soon, dead. And it's just, no one cares. It's not a scandal that he said he's doing a good job.
That's not even,
fact,
there is a scandal with Trump this week, but that's not even
I'm saying
like...
that's how far we've been pushed.
I know.
Where shit that used to be like this huge scandal-worthy shit, it's just like, I mean, I guess you could talk about it, but there's just 50 other so much more scandalous shit.
The bar is so low, it's like 6 feet underground.
That's why you know how people have this tendency to put like gate every time there's a scandal? at the end of some shit.
Yeah.
Like Shoegate, who stole the fucking shoes or something, just something like that.
Russiagate. Yeah.
Russiagate, yeah. I really wish people would stop doing that. Because if Watergate happened today, I don't think anyone would give a shit. Not really.
I mean, there are people who give a shit, but nothing comes of it, right? Nothing will come.
Yeah, but like, it's difficult when a good chunk of this country is literally just a cult and like doesn't care.
Right.
Like
right.
who the fuck said it? I don't know who said it, but they had said like if Fox News existed during Watergate, Nixon would have never resigned.
Probably.
And it's true. Like Nixon would probably have his own ravenous cult right now that loved him so much because he went after those dumb libtards. Yeah.
So yeah.
Anyway, this isn't movie news, so
yeah. So there's that. How you been this week?
Define been?
How is your general mood?
Oh. Awful?
Okay. So an improvement from last week.
Honestly, maybe. I don't know.
Should we talk about at the top about our little shindig we put on, our little like private screening, and yes. How that went? So how do you think it went? So what happened was, Peter had, as he mentioned, I believe before,
yes,
he has a projector, a screen. We set up an outdoor venue here in my home. Everything was spaced out 6 feet apart, socially distant, masks. Kyle brought food. And we watched Mulan. Yes. We'll talk about the film later on in the show, of course. But how do you feel the thing went down?
Overall, I think it went well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had some issues with
slight hiccups.
Yeah. I was a little, what's the word? Frustrated. I mean, I was frustrated in general with the movie, but
yeah.
It was kind of hard to hear, not through any fault of your own. There was just something wrong with Disney Plus and that it wasn't working with the speakers.
It was Disney Plus or the movie was really quiet. I don't know, because everything else we tried
was loud, and I could hear it.
And it was good, and it worked well. But just so happened with Mulan, the one fucking thing we're gonna watch. So annoying.
We were outdoors. It wasn't relatively noisy, and it was still difficult to hear. So, but there were subtitles, there were captions on, so we got basically everything for what it was. The weather wasn't great. Evidently, you had lower expectations than I did about how well it would be. It was 100 plus degrees.
Yeah.
And this is in the night, guys. So that gives you an idea of how hot it is in our area. To me, the heat is something that I'm relatively used to. I think, and this is why I had bug spray out. Whenever it gets that kind of warm at night, all these creepy, crawly, annoying pieces of shit come out, and they always get. I think I got a mosquito bite literally on my hand because I knew that shit always happens. So that stuff always bothers me, and I'm always a little bit. You know how I get when bugs get near me. I cannot settle down, but that's just me.
I don't usually get mosquito bites. I don't know why.
No, they love me. They love me. I don't understand that. The one thing that loves me in this world.
It's mosquitoes.
I know.
But yeah, I think overall it worked well.
I think it would work better if the weather was better.
Yeah. Again, I don't know. I guess acclimation, is that the word? I don't know.
Acclimation.
I've acclimated to the weather.
Assimilated.
Does
assimilated
work? Let's go with assimilate. You get what the fuck I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. To me, I was like, oh, it's not that bad.
It wasn't that bad. It's just the bugs. I can't stand bugs in any circumstance.
I know, but I think anyone else in the world is like 100 degrees at night. Like, wow. But like, I don't know. It's just like, yeah.
No, I mean that's kind of a normal day. What has not been normal, it's actually been relatively nice at night this week. We had a sudden dip in temperatures while the rest of California is seemingly on fire again. So there's that.
Maybe you guys should vote for people that give a shit about that kind of stuff and want to radically transform our energy systems.
Mm-hmm. Just a thought out there.
Just a thought.
I couldn't help but think that maybe for those mornings where there was an orange color in the sky, would have been an amazing opportunity for some film students to do like a Blade Runner knockoff or something.
Don't worry, they'll get more chances.
You say that with such disappointment. But yeah, I mean,
climate change only works one way.
Right. Yeah. It's here. What a fucking surprise, right? Even though we've known about this since the 60s. Overall, yeah, it was what it was. Although the entertainment was a little lacking. But that's not any fault of your own. We'll get into that.
Yeah.
So you want to start off with what we saw this week? I believe you've finished most of Schitt's Creek, as we were previously
all
discussing.
That I can.
Right.
I'm trying to think if I saw anything else. I fucking must have. Because I'll see things and then I'll forget that I saw them when we talk about this. And then, but then afterwards I'll be like, oh, damn it, that's right, I saw that. But I mean, yeah, I guess the one thing I've been doing. Oh God! See, finally. Okay, how could I forget? I've watched the first 4, I believe 4 of Lovecraft Country.
Ooh, that's getting a lot of
I have
talk.
been watching shit, and
that's kind of a big deal, Peter. It's people are watching that show right now.
Yeah, I know.
Remembered it.
I don't know why I did that. Yeah, I like it. It's slightly different than what I expected from it. It's a little bit more serialized than I expected.
Really?
And it's not that they don't have an overarching story, but like each episode.
Hold up. Let's back here. I think we got a little bit of a verbiage mix up. You mean episodic?
Oh yeah, words are stupid. So.
Well, I mean, we established this precedent in our Mandalorian discussions, the difference between serialized television and episodic television. Just to be consistent.
I know. It's a bit more episodic than I expected, but there is an overarching story that they're definitely following. But it was by the time I got to the second episode, where the second episode happens, because the first episode's really good, really, really good. And they set up all these mysteries, and you're like, oh shit, this is cool. Like, this is obviously what the show's gonna be about. Like, okay. And then the second episode answered everything and tied up most of the loose ends. And I'm like, did I skip to like the finale? Like, what is this? It was weird. It threw me off. I was like, okay. Now suffice to say, threads from the very beginning are still being pulled along, definitely. But there was just sort of, I was like, oh, this is weird, because a lot of this stuff I expected to not find out so quickly, like just definitively this is this is what they're trying to do. I was like, oh, this is the main bad guy. Oh no, he's dead. Like boom. Like, wow. That's interesting. But then by the third and even fourth, it's like, okay, I get what they're doing. And it's very much both a celebration of pulpy, nerdy, horror, science fiction stories and Black history. And sort of the melding of the two. It's very interesting in that, like, this isn't really spoiling anything technically, because this is like the first few seconds of the first episode. Jackie Robinson literally beats Cthulhu's head in to a pulp. And when I saw that, I was like, now this is something. I won't give you the context for why that happened, but it's funny. So yeah, but like, the reason why I say it's more serialized is because the first episode
more episodic, you mean? Did you do episodic, it again?
Why do we even need words? We just go back to just grunting at each other. The first episode is sort of these creatures. The second episode is like this cult, magical cult type shit. The third episode is ghosts haunting a house. And the fourth is, they even directly reference it in the episode, like Journey to the Center of the Earth, Indiana Jones type shit.
On the whole, I've heard mostly positive things about it.
Yeah.
It does do a little bit of a divergence in those first two episodes where either I've heard from some critics that they weren't thrilled with it, but mostly it's been positive and it's getting a lot of attention. I have a hard time kind of like figuring out what this show is. I know it's like science fiction with a little like it's borrowing heavily from Jim Crow South. But I'm not really sure what this show is.
It's it's a celebration of nerdy shit. And I'm not talking like superhero and that. I'm talking like old school. Well, it's in the tape, like Lovecraft, old fashioned science fiction, fantasy tales, like War of the Worlds, The Haunting of Hill House. These kinds of stories, you know, Dracula, not Bram Stoker.
So like a love letter to horror, basically.
Yeah, Bram Stoker. Not just horror, but like horror, fantasy, science fiction.
Gotcha.
And that covers a lot of things. Like Journey to the Center of the Earth isn't horror. It's you know, exploration. It's more along the lines of something of Indiana Jones. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's interesting. It's definitely a celebration of that, all that stuff, but it's also tied in and mixed completely in with racial history of the United States, like you said, Jim Crow South, and the way that both those sides sort of play off each other is very interesting. Like, I'll put it this way. Remember that breathtakingly amazing movie that won Best Picture a couple years back called Green Book?
You got me, man. I thought you were gonna compare it to Parasite or something.
No.
Because it did feel like a few years ago.
You remember what Green Book? What, like the actual real life Green Book? It was. I don't know if they've even explained it in the movie. The Green Book was a book of like safe places that were safe and places that weren't safe. Basically, just a handbook on how to, as a Black person, traverse the South,
right,
and live. Basically, they need to. In the very beginning, the main character's father goes missing, and he left a message for them. He's in Lovecraft country, so they got to traverse the South, and most of the episode is really the horror stems from them having to traverse through areas and not knowing where to go or where to not go. People seem safe, but then it's not safe. You know what a sundown town is?
A sundown town? I've heard the name. Refresh me real quick.
You're Black and they find you out and about in town. After sundown, you're dead, basically.
That's literal. Wow, sundown.
Yeah, and there's like this incredibly tense scene in which they're in the car and they're just trying to beat the sun out of the town. You know, you see the sun going down and they're just like, fuck, we gotta get out of here, and da-da-da-da-da. But what's interesting about that is when they do get to the more paranormal stuff, it's basically giant vampire creatures that come out and attack, not necessarily them, because they get caught by the police after sundown and they're basically going to kill them, and that's when the vampire creatures attack and racist cops get killed in pretty violent ways,
which I'm sure can be very cathartic in these times.
Yeah. But what's interesting about that is sort of the juxtaposition, you know, how this whole thing this episode is about them not feeling safe, and like, again, sundown towns, they can't be out at night, and that fear, and then that fear is sort of turned around on the racist perpetrators,
right?
Because it's them who now fears the night because of these creatures. It's kind of, I don't know, it does that constantly throughout the show, where it's not just racist stuff than other, you know, sci-fi, horror, fantasy stuff, then race. It doesn't go back and forth. It's intertwined. If you get what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I'm enjoying it.
I mean, it sounds very interesting. I'll say that. You know, I have actually. So for what I've been watching, I am still trying to finish my marathon watch of Doctor Who. I took a break for a month. Season 7, if you're not aware, is one of the more tumultuous seasons because it was the 50th anniversary year. And in the course of one season, you have two companions, a set of companions make their exit 5 episodes into the season. You introduce a new companion. And then by the time we get to the end, we're losing that version of the Doctor. So it's very... And it's also the 50th anniversary episode, which played in theaters, Day of the Doctor, which also featured the return of David Tennant to the role. A lot of shit happened that year, and season 7 is known for being among the weakest seasons because of just how uneven it is. I myself have been a critic of that season, but interestingly enough, and it might, I think, speak for itself, because it took me a month to get through that season. I was taking a whole bunch of breaks because I was like, okay. But I actually really enjoy Jenna Coleman. I love her, you're not even anywhere close to Jenna Coleman's era. Last time you, Jenna, she's amazing. She actually had a cameo appearance in the first Avenger, next to Chris Evans and Sebastian Stan in that scene where they're seeing Howard Stark turn on the flying car. Early in the movie.
Okay.
I don't know where else she's known from, but yeah.
I got to the second season.
That's still Billie Piper.
Yes, I'm very much so with Billie Piper. But I got to David Tennant. I guess
that's right. Yeah.
Which because you know how I feel.
I don't want to open the Pandora's box on that.
I mean, just open it slightly. Like that finale of the first season, it's like all this build-up and like twists about what's really happening and how what's-his-name had to die. And I remember watching it and then...
You're talking about the first season or the second season?
Whenever the first Doctor dies.
The first season, okay.
Yes. And I just remember going like... It kind of felt like after I finished the finale of season 2 Korra, where it's like I understand things happened. I don't have any idea of why or how they happened, and but so much of Doctor Who is that to me.
But I think it can be argued that's what they're going for. Because I think in Korra, it doesn't work like it doesn't work for you because there is established history in that world, in that franchise. And so much of what happens in Korra season 2 in general can feel like it's flying in the face of what was previously established. With that season of Doctor Who, that's the first season of Doctor Who. And it's a silly show, and they play fast and loose with everything. And so, like, that's kind of, I feel, what they're going for at the end of it. There's so, if that caused you to ask yourself so many questions, that's every episode of Doctor Who ever. I mean, I don't know what to say.
But they spend so much of the time like talking about the rules and how you can't do this, but you have to do that, and da 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 da.
They contradict themselves so many times. You know,
I know,
the Doctor,
but it's like they're so full of shit.
I mean, once every season, the Doctor either he lies, if you're being charitable, that, oh, I don't intervene in the affairs of any, and then he does. And then in that same episode, he goes ahead and does so, and then he ends up lying over the. You know, it's a show best enjoyed when you're not a Peter Martinez asking these kind of questions. If you're just, I don't think the show is for you. If we're being clear, however, going back to me, because this is about me here.
Okay.
I really love Jenna Coleman.
About you,
right? Clara Oswald is really a hated companion by and large, but I feel there's something so magical about her presence with the Doctor. And what I found is when I'm rewatching Doctor Who again and again, I become much more charmed by Matt Smith. I remember the first time I saw his Doctor, the first time I was watching the show, I liked him, but I wasn't necessarily in love with his version of the Doctor. I feel like I get more and more positive on his take. Because, you know, every 3 years they swap out the main actor for a different iteration of the Doctor. So
it has to be 3 years?
That's kind of the tradition. It's been like, at least for this era. So the first season was the first season, and Christopher Eccleston decided he was done. Out of the last minute, he was like, you know what? I'm good, y'all. I'm going to go. But ever since then, the other Doctors have had 3 seasons. David Tennant had 3. Matt Smith had 3, Peter Capaldi had 3, and so far Jodie Whittaker has had 2, and she's confirmed to come back for 1 more season. That's kind of, and that's not because like they were
too
fired.
Bad all her seasons suck.
I don't want to get there yet. I'm not even like, you know, I feel terrible because like there were some episodes of Doctor Who that I really like are like whatever to me, but there's still, I think, a little bit of charm to them in the actors that I watch them. I haven't decided yet if I'm even gonna bother rewatching anything from Jodie Whittaker's seasons.
Damn.
And I mean, I think she is just given nothing. And her stories are kind of like if you think like, so you had a lot of questions about Doctor Who, but you had questions. You don't even get that with her version of the Doctor or her stories. If it's all there on the surface and it mostly ends up being mundane and boring, which I think is worse than being baffled by the things that happen on screen. And that's kind of been the majority of her era. And like it got better with her second season, but unfortunately they gave her this timeless child mystery box, which completely retconned everything about the Doctor, literally everything about the Doctor and his race known as the Time Lords on Gallifrey. It literally was Ray Palpatine.
That's one thing, even with having watched one season, it feels like the longer the show goes on, they feel this need to like constantly pull out these like surprises.
Keep in mind that it is over 50, it's almost 60 years old now, this television show, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, granted, like they do a lot of this stuff. They do pull a lot of things out of their hat. I'm like, oh, well, now this happens and now we're going to rewrite this version of it. I'm not opposed to that. Like I always say, what did we gain and what did we lose? And when you tie in a mystery box component that is so connected to who the Doctor is, you kind of setting yourself up for failure. And I don't know. I think there are ways to kind of like get over that. But either way, the point is, I'm very happy. Look, Peter Capaldi is my favorite Doctor, and I'm very happy with how his last episode not only ended things off for that era, but for the first, because like his last episode of Doctor Who basically is the last episode of the 10th season, and that's a good number of seasons for a television show. So I don't know. For me, there's just been a significant drop off in quality. And you might like, well, what quality, Alexis? I mean, it's they really don't do much. Whatever. I love it.
I mean, a lot of people love it.
I mean, clear all over the world, except in America. They don't like Doctor Who in America, it seems. But there's
no.
I've been getting into this YouTube channel called Ordinary Adventures by Peter Shredder. He's actually a reporter for Slash Film and film critic for Slash Film. But he and his girlfriend Kitra have this basically theme park inspired, geek nerd inspired YouTube channel where they do a lot of stuff like vlogging at the parks, traveling, restaurants, food, all that stuff. And I've actually been looking over some of their material for Halloween Horror Nights at Universal. And I found that very interesting as somebody who's never experienced Halloween Horror Nights. So I saw their videos for both Orlando and Hollywood. Now keep in mind, I'm an individual who like wouldn't even draw you a picture of what a Halloween Horror Nights would look like. All I have are like stories about what Peter would tell me over the years. And it literally is what you described. It's just a bunch of people like coming at you and trying to scare you and attacking you.
It's although I saw assaulted for 5 hours.
Literally. I also saw their video on Not Scary Farm, which I also hear is quite popular too.
Yes.
So I saw it and it was like, honestly, after you get over the whole fact that people are going to be like scaring you, like it does look kind of fun, especially they put a lot of work into those haunted houses or those haunted mazes. A lot of work. I saw a lot of stuff, even from like, so they had Stranger Things, which was fun. And what's unique is that both coasts are different. They play to each other's strengths, but like for Stranger Things, for example, the one in Orlando kind of had like the storybook layout where you go through all the seasons. And I think with the one in Hollywood, they had more Demogorgons coming at you throughout. It looked fun. Honestly, I wouldn't mind trying that out. I was like, I saw those videos because I wanted to see, okay, what does Peter see in this stuff? This shit's pretty cool. And in some of those mazes, some of those like animatronics that they make, the huge things, and they also, a big part of it is jump scares too. And when a person is like hidden in some place and you're just walking through the maze and you're like trying to tiptoe around being scared, and then no, they get you almost every time. So it looked honestly like a lot of fun. Now, I've never even been to Universal Studios, period. So it looks like something I may want to try in the future. Now, this being 2020, that's not going to happen this year.
We can't even get to Galaxy's Edge.
I know. We were supposed to do that this year, and then that kind of crapped out because of Corona. But yeah. Honestly, it was just so cool looking at all that stuff. Like, there's a lot of work that goes into it, just from a crafts perspective. But overall, I've also been looking at videos from that channel about Universal Studios. What exactly, Peter? This is just a general question about Universal. What do you love about that park so much?
Universal Studios?
Yeah, Hollywood.
What I like? Well, I like the rides. Because I'm not a big, what's the word? There are people that love big and dangerous rides. That ain't me. I got a sensitive stomach.
That ain't me either.
Yeah. Well, when I like rides, I like the immersive experience of rides.
Right.
That's what I like. And Universal Studios really has that. Like, the whole Simpsons land and the Simpsons ride is so much fun. The Jurassic World Now ride. It does have a drop that it does not. Oh, I don't like it. But it's great because it does make you feel like you're in Isla Nublar, however you say it. Mm-hmm. The Transformers rides, like, I don't even like the Transformers movies, but fuck, like, is because Michael Bay's whole thing is just explosions and all that shit. It kind of translates perfectly into the ride, because the ride is a lot of fun. And
yeah, I mean, from what I've seen, it's very popular. And one thing I actually found out while, watching The Ordinary Adventures is that I think that the Transformers ride mechanism is more or less the same of the famous Spider-Man attraction over at Orlando's Universal.
Yeah. I don't know if they... it's made by similar people, I assume.
Universal.
Yeah,
it's their
Universal. People. And what's great about Universal is it's about movie making.
And that speaks to me. I've seen it before in different like clips, but of course a big signature attraction are the Hollywood backlot tours.
Yeah. It's fun.
Which are real real studios that they still use.
The fourth season of The Good Place fucked us over the last time I went. Cause
what do you mean?
Because when you go on the tours,
they were filming the fourth season of The Good Place, and part of the stuff. Yeah, I heard about that. Part of the tour itself, it depends if you're going to see it or not. If they're using the lot, like one of the ones that they have is the famous town square from Back to the Future. Yeah, and usually they don't show it because it's being used for filming.
Mm-hmm. And like, well, just like the road, like there was. Last time we went, we had to stop for like a good long while because I don't know if they were filming something on the road or where they usually drive through or whatever. But yeah, we just had to stop for a while because they were filming, And then we went through, and then they have like a Fast and Furious experience that was fucked up, and we weren't able to do it either. So I was like, God damn. Short end of the stick with that tour. But no, it's cool. Like, you literally drive past like the what do you call it? The offices of like Spielberg.
Universal.
Like, that's Spielberg's office right there. Like, they even have, you can see it on the name, and like the car, the parking has their name on it. And they talk about like, you know, this is where they have their Western set, where it's like back in the day, all kinds of Westerns were shot here.
Speaking of, when they were going through that, I was like, that looks like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. That scene or those scenes, and it was, sure enough, in that video, they said they recently filmed Once Upon a Time in Hollywood on that lot. And like, oh, okay. Yeah. That's cool.
It's cool. It's really cool. So, yeah. Oh, and what's really, really cool is because you don't see it on the regular tours. But for Halloween Horror Nights, they have, what's it called? They have,
well, it's the Bates Motel.
Oh yeah, you walk through the Bates Motel and shit. Like, you don't go inside the hotel, but you literally walk through there because they have a maze there. But they also have mazes on the bottom lots that you never drive through, which is like big city
sets,
big city sets where
like New York?
Where it's literally streets. Yeah.
Interesting.
Made to look like New York City, and like from maybe in the 1950s and stuff like that.
Right. In fact, I think Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. might have filmed there, because I remember earlier this season, they were in 1930s era New York City, and they primarily shoot in L.A., what's the closest place to go that has a lot that has New York, period New York. And it was like when the Ordinary Adventures were going past that part of the tour, I was like, that building looks like, okay, I can see it now.
And you don't go down there during the regular tour.
It's not part of the regular tour.
No, but it's opened up because the mazes are literally inside that like city place. So you can actually walk down there.
That's cool.
During that time, you have to go through this tunnel to get down there, but that's where they have the toxic tunnel, where it's dark at night and there's like rave lights, and then they have people with masks in the tunnel. It's to scare the shit out of you. Yeah, it's neat. So yeah, I don't know. I obviously love it.
I'll tell you, it looked like a lot of fun. One day. I mean, Universal is open right now. I feel anyway.
Fuck that.
No, Orlando is open. I don't think Hollywood's open yet. They have City Walk is open, so there's that.
Yeah, I can go shop.
Yay. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into our first story. So, as you might have heard, movie theaters are back. By the way, we're still in a pandemic in case you forgot about that, but you know, who cares, right? Anyway, movies came back. Just to give people a clear idea as to how many are back. There's a good 65% of all theaters in America that are back up and running. In fact, in just about every major state except for a handful, most theaters are open. And even in California, where they have no business being open, they're beginning to open, like San Diego and Orange County. Of course, Orange County, right? No surprise there. So now that being said, of course, I would assume mostly every single theater is operating at 30% capacity ratio, in which case 70% of that theater is empty for social distancing, which is recommended, of course, not necessarily enforced. And we've been talking about Christopher Nolan and his Tenet movie for a long, long time. And, you know, Maybe more so than any other movie. And again, nothing at all to do with the film itself, because we're not seeing it. We're not going to see it because it's not playing anywhere near us. And even if it was, we're not going to go into a movie theater right now because, as we've established, it is not safe to do that at all. So it's just continued to evolve the story. And so for all of this hoopla, for all of this hullabaloo... And we said that last week, Tenet opened to $50 million at the international box office. And we had stressed perhaps that may be, a good indication for the survival of the cinematic experience going forward, the theater-going experience. But with the asterisk, of course, and we said this, that most places in the world are doing a lot better than we are in America. Mm-hmm. So there's that going in their favor. All of which is to say, Tenet finally opened here in America to what I would consider a lackluster $20.2 million opening. It made $30 million in China, where it also opened, so there's that. There's a couple of things to say about this. So people have been saying, look, of course, Tenet was going to make not that much money. You have to understand, of course, that under these circumstances, your expectations for how a movie is going to perform financially have to be lowered. To which I say, go fuck yourself. That's why they shouldn't have opened. That's why risk these kind of headlines that make you look like shit and like a loser, quite frankly, when you know the result. And what was the result? It wasn't all that great. I mean, it wouldn't be all that great even if that was the actual number. So $20.2 million is the number that was being reported for the domestic box office. However, what's often not mentioned is that, when we talk about opening weekends, it usually is over a 3-day period. And some people, when it's a holiday, they count it as a 4-day period. In fact, this number, 20.2 million, is over a 13-day period. So you roll over Canada's opening box office for Tenet from the previous week alongside. Now, this isn't normally done. That's how they decided to do this, I think, to spruce up that number as much as they could. But you also had premiere screenings a full week before Tenet made its opening wide debut across the country. And so what has been the average like? So you look at Unhinged, you look at New Mutants, they've done $6, $7, $8 million for an opening weekend. In truth, Tenet, if it was actually a 3-day number, might not have been much better than that. There's good indication to believe that it only made $9-10 million in the 3 days that it was open, or the whatever you want to say, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then it benefited from having Canada's numbers being saved to be added on top of what it did in the States this past weekend. And also give people a clear picture about what that means for who gets a cut of that money. So WB demanded a higher ratio of the cut of the earnings, as you will. They're getting 63% of the money of those $20.2 million. So exhibitors, which means the theaters, were only getting $7.4 million of that money. Not too much of a surprise, because as we know that when movies come out in theaters, in the beginning of the movie's run, more of that money goes to the studio rather than the exhibitor. But by the time that the movie finishes its theatrical release, it's more closer to a 50-50 line. Tenet grossed $150 million overall in the international box office. And it had a very kind of varied second weekend in some markets. I think it had a 53% drop in France. In other places, like in the UK, it had a 35% drop, which is, I think, decent. 24% drop in Germany. are just some numbers that stick out. We'll get to the budget talk in a bit, but looking at all these numbers, Peter, what do you make of all this?
I mean, it's a long way of just saying, obviously it's not going to make a lot of money in a pandemic. Everything here is pretty obvious. It didn't make that much, not nearly as much as it would have if there weren't a pandemic. So it was obviously stupid to release it now. It'll be.
Can I be honest? I feel you're being charitable when you use the word stupid. I think this is moronic. I mean, weren't we the ones saying that in the very beginning of this, when it looked as if they were going to go ahead, that, hey, forget the fact that you don't care about getting people sick. Mm-hmm. You do know that this is a lose-lose. Like, you're not getting your money back.
Yeah. But I feel as if once you start doing like the whole campaign, once you start the what's it called? The marketing campaign.
And they had 2 different marketing campaigns for Tenet.
Yeah, you start bleeding money.
Yeah.
And at that point, it doesn't matter how much you lose. It's still better to just put it out then and there than to wait forever, because then you're gonna have, if you keep pushing it, you're gonna have to keep marketing it, and it's just gonna get bigger and bigger, and then by the time you release it, you lose money anyway. So might as well just release it right now and lose. And to
be clear,
money.
with Tenet, as we just said, just to be entirely clear, they had a marketing campaign, and the pandemic. We were already well into the pandemic before they had time to make a decision to back out of the initial marketing campaign and save most of that money. They had time.
Yeah, but
and they chose not to.
Mm-hmm. We've talked about this. It's mostly Nolan, and they kind of do whatever he wants. And he wanted to save cinema. Good job, buddy. You did it. Congrats. Good for you. Bunch of head pats. Yeah, the numbers aren't surprising. I guess what's interesting to me is what kind of influence it will have on
everything else going forward.
Yeah, how
that's the most interesting question.
Decide on whether to hold off, just release it, go VOD. And right now, it seems like the number one route studios are probably going to take is just kick everything back. No VOD, because I guarantee you're going to go into 50 paragraphs talking about Mulan's numbers.
Well, I can give you an example right here with New Mutants. So New Mutants, which didn't do that great at all, in this last weekend dropped 50...
I guess because I was speaking specifically to the VOD portion.
Oh, VOD.
Yes.
Well, I mean, we've talked about Scoob, or the lack of Scoob. We had the example of Trolls or The King of Staten Island.
Mulan was the first major sort of blockbuster VOD that had everything been running the same way, it probably would have hit 1 billion. So for me, anyway, my whole thing is, you look at Mulan's numbers, VOD, not that great. You look at Tenet's numbers, release that shit in theaters like nothing's going on, not that great. So it seems like maybe the biggest option that most of these studios will go is, fuck it, let's just wait.
Yeah, and who said that? Who thought that would be the best approach months and months ago? Oh, that's right. I think you and I were both on the same page in the beginning of this pandemic. You know what? The best option you guys have is to just sit on this shit. I personally don't care when the movies come out. I think from a box office standpoint, they'll be as equally profitable for everyone involved because of the circumstances. I remain solid on that position to this day. And since you're saying it, basically that's the story, right? That, the studios are seeing at the results from, theatrical box office numbers and then also with VOD experiments, both on or off on streaming services. And the results are not resounding at all. Maybe actually they may be resounding in that it's just not a good way to go, it seems, on any level. And I feel like, well, no shit. I felt like we knew these answers. Of course, VOD wasn't going to be the option.
Mm-hmm. But I think this was the big VOD experiment.
Again, to be clear, we don't have the numbers. We're only speculating as to how Mulan did or not.
Yeah,
but we haven't heard anything.
But if it was a success, we would have heard numbers already.
Well, that's what Universal pulled with the Trolls.
Mm-hmm.
At least they had a publicity stunt in a sense where they claimed that Trolls did a lot of money. And to be fair, Mulan has a lot of drama going on right now. But you're right, we don't know what it did. We have anecdotal stuff about Mulan, but yeah, I mean, just to, I want to give a broader sense as to what else happened at the box office. So The New Mutants dropped 59% in its second weekend. It only made $2.8 million. So,
not the best.
No, that's not. It's only made $12 million total in domestic so far. So, the numbers, if you noticed, they're getting smaller and smaller. Well, with Mulan, Mulan is interesting, right? Because not only is it have this kind of a weird like streaming service, PVOD, hybrid debut, where you have to pay for a subscription service fee, and then on top of that, you have to pay for the film itself. But in other parts of the world, it is going to get a theatrical experience where Disney Plus isn't available, and perhaps also in areas where they thought the film would do well. They might have spoke too soon with that regard, but the initial results came in. Mulan grossed $6 million overseas. The film only opened in 6% of the normal international markets, and they haven't opened in China yet. They were saving it, I think, for this week, which might have been a bad move considering how things have gone.
Yeah.
Disney Plus, this gets more into what we know happened this weekend with Mulan. So Disney Plus saw a 68% increase in digital downloads for the app itself, and most of that, if not all of it, is attributed to Mulan premiering. We also know, because it's been reported, or you can even just go on Disney Plus and see it for yourself, that the number one spot for what's trending on Disney Plus has been a neck and neck race between Mulan live action and The Simpsons. In fact, I think for the most of it, there was even a part where Cinderella, the 2015 remake, was ahead of Mulan in terms of the positions on Disney Plus. And if you think about that, that doesn't look good, right? I mean, that would suggest perhaps it's not doing that well if it's trailing behind The Simpsons.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, if it was doing well, we would already know. Disney would already be out with the numbers bragging. So just based on the little information that we have, which is, outside numbers sort of guesstimating and just looking at the trending spots, yeah, it's probably not that great.
More evidence here. Scott Mendelson, a reporter from Forbes, has also gone onto Twitter to give more anecdotal evidence. Again, this is all purely anecdotal evidence that he has been hearing from his sources that rentals weren't great for Mulan. But that's kind of all that we know about Mulan in terms of its performance. There was some outlet that was saying that if it could have made the equivalent of what was it? What was the number? $60-some million? Is that what the number was?
Yeah.
Which, I mean, on the whole, it's so difficult what to make of those kind of figures. I guess it's good because they made that much money, and that's money that wouldn't have been there if Mulan wasn't there. But yeah. So if we're gonna go down this line of thought, Peter, are you fairly confident that because you see, I'm still not sure. I wonder. Part of me feels like, well, maybe they're not telling us because. I mean, let me just be real. I feel like, honestly, the numbers weren't great, and that's why they're not telling us. I think that's where I'm landing on it. But if I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt, well, maybe they don't want to bring more attention to it because the film has kind of been trashed by everybody in the press. But if you had any bit of good news, you would say something, because that would be something you can celebrate, and you would,
And they haven't said shit. Like I said before, I think it's pretty obvious. The great VOD experiment was. It's not a replacement to traditional movie going experience as far as the money goes. But also people just aren't willing to go to the movie theaters right now. At least not nearly enough. Which I guess some faith in humanity restored, maybe. I don't know. Which means you're kind of at an impasse. Put on VOD, you lose money. Put in theaters, you lose money. So what's the answer to that? You don't put anything out anywhere.
So I guess the next question is, and we had said that it depended on how well or not Mulan did, but I guess we shouldn't expect to see any movies out anytime soon. Not just like from Disney's like Soul or Black Widow, but it seems as if everything's being pushed back. Let me just be clear. So the reason why Tenet matters so much for Warner Brothers, there are rumors more and more now that Wonder Woman 1984 and Dune are going to be pushed into next year. And also, we should say that there are also other films that are seemingly planning to go ahead that are not as reliant on America. So James Bond might very well open in November, but it won't. I think it might even open here, but it won't do anything here because James Bond happens to be a franchise where it makes most of its monies overseas. But even then, they're still gonna, even if every theater is open overseas, you're not gonna have the same kind of performance if it wasn't, if it was pre-pandemic and everything. So I just want to get all those things out there on the table for people to understand that these movies are the guinea pigs, and every movie studio right now is literally looking at this and deciding what the future of their films are going to be. James Bond may be the only exception that they're going to go ahead and plow through an international release, although I feel like maybe they shouldn't, because they'd be better off if they just wait like everybody else, but
No, you want my views on it?
That's why I stopped talking.
Honestly, I don't know. I have no clue exactly, and I don't think any of the studios specifically either know what they'll do. I really do think it'll just be kind of a hold back kind of thing. I know, well, there was rumors that specifically Disney with
Black Widow and Soul?
Soul. I think more Soul. There was this idea of like, let's see how Mulan does, and maybe Soul they'll drop Soul on VOD. I think that was one that they were sort of looking at very strongly to drop on VOD. But again, I mean, they still might do it though, because looking at things, the coronavirus could get much worse come wintertime.
Can we be honest? It could or will.
What?
Could or will get much worse.
I mean, I'm leaning towards it will, but you never want to have definitive statements like this, because then people are really stupid. Because remember, the whole thing was like, theoretically, the coronavirus could lessen or even go away during the summer, but everyone took it as definitive, and it's like, no, it's a possibility. but people are stupid, so they took it and they're like, no, it's okay, we're in the sun, we're safe from the coronavirus. And it's like, oh god, just read one article, not a headline, just an article. Click on it, it won't kill you. The coronavirus might, but not clicking on the article. So yeah, I don't want to say definitively, but that is very much a fear from many medical professionals who I believe we should always listen to.
I mean, if you want a headline only, I can give you one that I read today that made me profoundly sad. A 28-year-old elementary school teacher died after being in in-person classes for a week of coronavirus, to be clear.
Yeah, and that teacher didn't have to die. I really do lay any school openings right now, like, fuck, I really lay that at the feet of the current administration, because they pushed so hard for it when they should have been using their time and energy into developing and helping schools learn virtually. Or they could have just treated this seriously in the first place and not have to get around this. I saw a tweet and fuck, it's so true. It's so true. I don't know if you saw it. I can't remember who tweeted it, but they said something like, if Hillary Clinton were president, 20,000 people would have died due to coronavirus, and it would have been the only thing you would hear Republicans screaming about.
Right.
Every second of every day.
Benghazi, how many Americans died in Benghazi?
4 Americans died with Benghazi.
They bitched about 4 Americans dead for years and years and years. They admitted it was a hoax. And then they don't give a damn that 191,000 people died over COVID-19 because of Donald Trump's incompetence.
But then when it comes to 200,000 people dying, it's like, well, everyone dies. And it's like, really, motherfucker? Like, fuck. Okay, I'm going to say something that's a little bit controversial. And, I mean, I know you
expect it at this point.
Yeah, I know. I know you'll agree with me, but this is definitely a hot button topic issue in this country specifically. Tomorrow is 9/11, right?
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
So I just want to make this very clear. We never cared about those 3,000 people that died, like, collectively as a country. This country genuinely never gave a shit about those 3,000 people dying. We really didn't. Like, we didn't. Look at the way we're reacting right now. So many people after 9/11 where it's like, I'll do anything for my country. I'm going to sign up. I'll go kill people. I'll do this. I'll do that. Anything for my country. My heart bleeds red, white, and blue. And then those same people are like, hey, to save the amount of lives as a 9/11 happening every single day, just wear a mask when you go outside. Those same people that are like, I will give up my life, to defend this country because of 9/11, never forget. Those same people are like, no, it's my freedom and I don't want to wear a mask. Or they'll say, well, the numbers are kind of inflated, so who cares? Which isn't true, but they'll say that. And then they'll say, well, it's only the elderly and the sick that are dying, so...
Or some will say it's a hoax. It doesn't exist.
Or it doesn't even exist. To which I say, I guess the 200,000 dead people never existed in your mind either. I think what people really like is a good story. This idea of, we're attacked and, we're going to be the underdog and we're going to fight back and da-da-da-da-da and this and that. People really like an enemy that they can shoot. I think that's what it comes down to. but actually caring that 3,000 people lost their lives. I used to think that this country, at least on a human level, cared. I don't think that's true. I don't think it was ever true. Because there's so many things every day, and especially this coronavirus, where those many people die in infinitely greater numbers, and these same people that scream never forget are the first ones to scream who cares. So it's so profoundly sad to me.
Let me tell you what I find so sad. All of it, obviously.
Yeah.
On Memorial Day weekend, I put a post on Facebook and also tweeted this about over 90,000 Americans died. Where is the outrage? Mm-hmm. Between then, what has happened? So we just passed Labor Day. We're now hitting 9/11. So between Memorial Day and Labor Day, 100,000 Americans died. We went from 90,000 to 190,000. And again, I ask, where is the outrage? You know what's so fucking outrageous? Regardless of whatever you think of Joe Biden as a deeply flawed candidate, there are almost 200,000 Americans dead, and yet it's going to be a close election.
Yeah.
And on top of that, I want to say on a personal note, look, I began this year as an assistant educator, a substitute teacher in my home districts and in some of the schools that I myself was educated in, elementary, middle school, and high school. And I was displaced because of the pandemic. If they had opened as other schools opened throughout the country, they didn't. But if they did, I wouldn't have come back because I knew what that would mean. It would mean me sacrificing myself. And I refuse to do that on the altar of capitalism, this country, and especially the people who lead this country. I'm not going to give up my life to satisfy them. But I'm ultimately happy that they decided to not open. But it really hurts my heart that many people who sign up to be a teacher, which is a fucking thankless job. I'm not going to pretend that I know the closest thing to being that because I'm not really a teacher. But just, from the conversations that I've had and just from, knowing things about how this country works, it is a thankless job in general, but also from a financial standpoint. I mean, I don't know what it is about both the establishment of the Republicans and the Democrats that they like to beat the crap out of teachers and cut their funding all the time. And if that wasn't enough, we're talking about COVID, right? I'm reading headlines here that say at least in one school, at least 4 teachers have died of COVID since the start of the school year. Another one from the Hill. Teachers in at least 5 states have died with coronavirus since the fall semester started. These are people who sign up, to do a thankless job and to help educate the next generation of kids. And in one instance, all these people that are dying are young, one 34-year-old, one 28-year-old. They're just dropping dead. Where is the fucking outrage over that?
I can already see it. I can already see it coming tomorrow. All these fucking MAGA people, 9/11, never forget, da-da-da-da-da. And it's like, I just can't take the fake. I just can't take how fake it all is. It's the same with Benghazi. Like, you don't care that those 4 people died. You don't care. Like, you don't care about human life. You just don't care. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend as if you have a moral bone in your body. It's I don't know what it comes down. I guess it's just ultra nationalism. I guess I don't know what it is. The sad thing is though, like, you should care. You should remember 9/11, you should care about those 3,000 people that lost their lives. That should matter to you. But the way that you react when 200,000 people are dead and you just do every mental gymnastics humanly possible to not give a fuck just tells me, like, okay, so you don't care. You don't care about anyone's loss of human life.
You know what? There's real disappointment because, you know, I'm not disappointed in Trump. This is exactly what I expect from him.
Yeah.
I'm disappointed in the people, the American people, that how much they're willing to just let go. It scares the crap out of me. I mean, you and I called it, I think, earlier that Biden would be a terrible candidate to go up against Trump in a normal election. And I kind of feel like if you're looking at the polls, if coronavirus wasn't a thing, would it be kind of a toss-up right now? Like, it kind of almost is in some places. I still think Biden has a great chance of winning, don't get me wrong. But you look at the numbers and you see things getting closer and you think to yourself, nothing has gotten better. Death rates aren't going to go down. Infection rates are going down some. But death numbers are still going up every single day. You know?
Mm-hmm.
And if we're going to... I'm sorry, did you have something else to say with this?
No.
Because I wanted to kind of like pivot real quick back to the film aspect of this, right? So we talked about schools opening.
We were talking about a film? Hold on, what?
Right, I know. Sports are back. So do you think there exists the potential going forward where the bet was made that Tenet would become a juggernaut as the weeks would go on by, that it would slowly but surely make back most of its money, if not all of its money, because it would be the only competition in town for movie theaters. It'd be the only, you know, marquee attraction basically for all this time. Do you think that's even gonna happen? Because I feel like that the longer theaters are open, the higher the risk there will be of infections spiking yet again. Like, I think Kumail Nanjiani, who I love, by the way, great actor, comedy actor, but great guy all around. Go watch The Big Sick, by the way. It's a great film. And catch him in Marvel's Eternals next year.
Maybe
next year. Maybe next year. He tweeted something to the effect of, this feels like we're back in May, where there was the sense that we had beaten it and everything was reopening, and then a month later everything spiked and it got worse than it was before. And again, this would happen. The circumstances that we're in right now, I think, are just obvious based on what's happened before, but it's going to get worse with flu season, with the cold, with the winter, the fall. Like, I have a hard time believing this notion that theaters are even going to stay open. I think Forbes reporter Scott Mendelson published this piece today that Tenet may have done more harm than good at movie theaters. I mean, talking about the studio itself not making enough its money back, our theaters, there's some talk right now that is it even worth it to be open with how little they're making?
Yeah. Again, this is what I said previously. It's studios are gonna take note of the fact that it's just not making. It's not making a lot of money. It's not this big. It's not what Nolan wanted it to be, to herald back the movie theater to full form, and it's not gonna be there like that for a long while. So it's definitely going to make studios think twice before, when they're thinking about, should we kick back the release date or just release it now? They're probably going to lean more on just kicking back the release date.
You know, if you're Nolan, you know, my beef with him aside, you're a creator. You're a big name in this industry. Not just, you know, that you make great films, that they're received by the artistic community of you know, cinema, but they also make a lot of money. That is so exceedingly rare. Like, I'm sure, like, Scorsese would have loved for once to have gotten that kind of notoriety where, like, not only were his films great, which they are, but also or the blockbusters that Nolan's are. And yet, when you look at it, I feel like the performance of Tenet, I feel kind of takes his name down a couple of pegs. I mean, you want your film to do well, right? You want it to, and you get 20% of the cut of this movie. That's what WB let you have. But I feel like you kind of screwed yourself over financially. You're making less money personally. But at the same time, you have to understand that this is going to hurt your standing. I want to throw this out there. So the movie had a budget of $200 million. The marketing for this was estimated, IndieWire did this estimate, between $300 and $350 million. So you're adding that $350 million on top of $200. You have $550 million already with the marketing and the budget combined, which is fucking expensive. Most trades are saying that Tenet needs to make between $450 to $500 million to break even. And the current estimations for the movie is maybe it'll get to $300 million. I mean, I hate math, but I can do the arithmetic there. Those numbers don't add up to anything close to being good.
Yeah.
I just don't understand what they thought they were going to get. I don't understand the rationale.
They hoped it would have been better by now. Like most people.
Yeah, so there's that. It's mostly depressing. And we'll see where things go. You want to move on to the next thing with John Boyega? Because that's some fireworks right there.
Sure, I mean, we're gonna do it anyways.
We're doing it anyway. Mr. John Boyega, who is known for his appearance as Finn in the Star Wars sequel trilogy, which at this point has been much maligned, it seems, did an interview with Deadline last week. And I'm going to read to you exactly what he said, and we're going to get into this. Here we go. John Boyega says Disney marginalized diverse characters in the Star Wars sequels. He claims that he and fellow diverse cast members were pushed to the side, quote unquote. So let me read to you this long thing that he said. All right. So this is everything word for word, John Boyega's words. You get yourself involved in projects, and you're not necessarily going to like everything. But what I would say to Disney is do not bring out a black character, market them to be much more important in the franchise than they are, and then have them pushed to the side. It's not good. I'll say it straight up. You knew what to do with these other people, but when it came to Callie Marie Tran, when it came to John Boyega, you know fuck all. So what do you want me to say? What they want you to say is, and this is him doing like a quote, I enjoyed being part of it. It was a great experience. Nah. I'll take that deal when it's a great experience. Wow. They gave all the nuance to Adam Driver. All the nuance to Daisy Ridley. Let's be honest. Daisy knows this. Adam knows this. Everybody knows I'm not exposing anything. I'm the only cast member who had their own unique experience of that franchise based on their race. I'm going to step right in here and say, no, you're not. Don't say you're the only one. There's another one out there who was called Fat Asian Bitch, and it wasn't you. I just wanted to interject there. It makes, back to his quote, it makes you angry with a process like that. It makes you much more militant. It changes you because you realize I got given this opportunity, but I'm in an industry that wasn't even ready for me.
Your thoughts?
He's right. He's right when it comes to the people who he's targeting, and that is Disney. I feel there may be a slight irrelevant disagreement in the particulars that he and others see in his treatment of his character. Let me just say this. John Boyega, I think, is using his platform to great effect to bring out these issues, and I think that in and of itself is a positive move forward. We need to be much more open about these things, cognizant of them, that way they don't continue to happen. I understand that he feels this way, and I am sure that a lot of it is exactly for those reasons. Now, from what I also know from covering these movies for so many years is a lot of stuff in regards to J.J. Abrams and Kathleen Kennedy in particular. The happenstance in terms of Finn as a character, in terms of what J.J. and Kathleen primarily did to him was less of a race-based issue and more of a incompetence issue. But regardless of that, the point remains is Disney in particular has a very disgusting history in terms of taking advantage of people of color, actors of color. And when
you're completely wrong. You could have just ended it at Disney has a disgusting history. I mean, you haven't even mentioned it, but like several areas of China where literal concentration camps currently stand.
We're gonna mention them.
Yeah, like they don't. They're a business.
Yeah. No, I don't deny that, of course. But as far as like this particular issue, I agree with John Boyega that they have done a horrid job of doing this. And it's not just people of color. I think it's any kind of representation that's passed off in the media as this big thing. I think, to me, some of the more highly offensive things that I can think of on the top of my head is Josh Gad's idea of a gay character in Beauty and the Beast. Or
I don't think it was Josh Gad's idea.
Or I wasn't okay. Excuse me. I didn't mean to say it was Josh Gad's idea. Disney's idea for what an LGBT person. Yeah. Right. Also, what they plan to do with comedian Jack Whitehall in the upcoming Jungle Cruise film, with him being the officially declared open gay character of a Disney movie. And and we all know Kelly Marie Tran was viciously sidelined. Kelly Marie Tran, who is obviously Asian, an actor of color, really? Had a big role in Star Wars Episode 8, relative newcomer, and she was pushed to the side where she had, what was it, not even 90 seconds of screen time in Episode 9. By the way, she was viciously attacked by a lot of Star Wars fans with the quote, "fat Asian bitch." I think that was an intentional racial attack, maybe because they use Asian in the title of it. And Disney looked at that and they said, "All right, we'll make sure the fat Asian bitch doesn't have anything to say in the next movie then." Well,
I don't think Disney had much control. I think they kind of gave the reins to J.J. Abrams.
I know. I'm saying that this is the track record. I'm not saying that they're personally responsible for all these different things. That's why I said J.J. Abrams, I feel, has more to play with the criticism of this in terms of that character in particular. But overall, the point is, Disney has a terrible track record in general with anything good, to your point, but a terrible track record in terms of this issue. And I'm happy that one of their own is taking the opportunity to slap him in the face for doing this. I mean, with John Boyega, look at his experience. What happened? The marketing for his character was minimized in China. He personally speaks to the fact that he got pushback because he was apparently sold as a stormtrooper, and people were saying you can't be a black stormtrooper.
Can you shut the fuck up for 10 seconds so I can come in here and drop some knowledge on you? I just like when you just lean back and look like, fine, say whatever the fuck you want to say.
Did you not hear me? I said, go ahead.
I know.
I literally said, go ahead. You didn't have to say those ugly things to me.
Your face makes me laugh, okay? It's a compliment. We recorded the Korra Season 2 review yesterday. I noticed it's already up. Well, you shared it.
It is live as we speak.
Yes. I'm gonna say the same thing at the beginning of that I'm gonna say here. It seems that I often agree with people, but not for the same reasons.
I know
that they, so to speak. So, like, overall, when you talk about how Finn as a character was treated, how John Boyega, maybe as an actor, was treated in the whole trilogy, I would say, yeah, he has reason to be like this, to act like this, to say these things. And I'm glad that I really like this thing where actors and actresses are kind of comfortable talking about these things. Because I think in the long run, it's just so much better. That everything that goes on behind the scenes isn't like, well, I guess what's difficult is, because making movies is hard. People get heated. People have disagreements. And when you have people in the internet take that and they run with it, and it can sometimes be dumb. But in the long run, I do think it's better that people come out and say these things. And where I would agree with him, a lot of what you said, obviously, yeah? So, like, and I remember in front of my computer watching the first Star Wars teaser like a year before it was supposed to come out. Like, I remember that shit.
Yeah.
And yeah, I also remember the racist backlash of like, well, he's black, he's not supposed to be a stormtrooper, da 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 da. And it's like all these Star Wars fans trying to be like, well, I know better than you. He's black. He's not supposed to be a stormtrooper. And it's like, well, you don't know shit, because it was never specified what color a stormtrooper had to be. But for me, like, if I'm John Boyega, and to be fair, I did not experience what he experienced, although he never talks about anything specifically behind the scenes, any issues with specific people. Like, he's not pulling a fucking... what's his name over at DC?
Ray Fisher.
Yeah, he's not pulling a Ray Fisher. And John Boyega very much does come off as the guy to me if there were specific instances and scenarios with certain directors or producers or whatever, he would not hold back in coming out and saying that shit. Like, we
should note, he did defend J.J. Abrams.
Yeah, like, he even went out of his way to defend J.J. Abrams. But again, that's where I'm like, then what are you complaining about? Because, yeah, for me, the biggest issue.
Well, I mean, JJ cast him, so
sure, but either you're gonna like tackle this shit or you're not,
Yeah, I know.
Because then, if you want to go that far, then like be like, well, hey, Disney signed his checks.
Right?
Why are you complaining? Because if you want to go that far, we can go that far. But again, if you really want to tackle this issue, then you got to actually tackle the issue. And to me, when I'm looking at the real, honestly, like, disgusting shit that went on surrounding his character, I think the worst of it was obviously Rise of Skywalker, but we'll get to that. But first and foremost, The Force Awakens. If you remember, he was marketed as the new Black Jedi main hero of the story.
Wow.
Like, you remember? All the trailers had him with the lightsaber. All the posters had him with the lightsaber. He was marketed as he was gonna go... The story seemed like it was going to be this stormtrooper, goes to being a Jedi or whatever. That's the way the movie was marketed. And I guarantee you the only reason it was marketed that way was because of bullshit J.J. Abrams in his mystery box of, I tricked you. You thought he was going to be the hero, but actually Rey's the hero. And it's like... and
hold on a minute. Hold on. I don't want to cut you off, but there's so much you're saying that it's just like triggering these flashbacks out of nowhere. Because we did Star Wars project leading up to The Force Awakens. We were paying attention to every micro detail of that campaign and everything. We were doing it, you and I. Yeah. And what you just said right there, that I guarantee you was J.J. Abrams' mystery box, that's why it happened that way. I wonder if perhaps, because here's the thing. We walked out of The Force Awakens surprised who the main character was. It was Rey. She's the main character of this trilogy.
Yes.
I, at least anyway, was under the impression that because of the marketing that it was going to be more leaning toward Finn.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the second we got the poster, I thought it was pretty obvious that they were pulling a bullshit switcheroo because Rey was right in the center of the poster. But of course, again, Finn was holding the lightsaber. And again... Right, yeah. He's not a Jedi. He was never shown to be even close to being a Jedi within that film. And it's like, whenever people talk shit about Finn's character, everything that they talk shit about was done in The Force Awakens. They made him bumbling comedic relief who's chasing after Rey and who was a space janitor. All of that happened in The Force Awakens. And how does The Force Awakens end? Like, because there's complaints, it's like, oh, he got moved to the B storyline in The Last Jedi. And it's like, that's true. But if you look at any action adventure sequel ever, like the original Star Wars or The Lord of the Rings, what happens is the hero goes off on their own journey and then the supporting characters have like their B storyline. Like, that's unbelievably standard for these kinds of films. But not only that, how does The Force Awakens end? The Force Awakens ends with Finn in a coma, left alone while Rey goes with Luke at the end. Like, the film literally, Force Awakens literally set up them being separated for the middle chapter. Like, so there's that. And then I can't remember if you said the quote, but he had a quote by defending J.J. Abrams, basically saying, like, don't go after my boy like that. He wasn't supposed to have to come back and clean up your shit. He didn't say, he said your shit, because that ain't his shit, your shit. Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, but if your complaint is that your character had nothing and you were completely sidelined, you had literally nothing to do in The Rise of Skywalker. You weren't even a character. I'd never seen a character so much more sidelined than in The Rise of Skywalker. And who... Main
character. We're not talking about supporting character.
Yeah, we're
like
not
Kelly
even
Marie
talking
Tran.
about supporting character like Tran. But yeah, like, you were hardcore sidelined like crazy. And you got literally nothing to do in that film. Nothing at all. And you talk about, like, they didn't have shit for me at all. J.J. Abrams was the one that made your character at the beginning. And he never thought out, like, freaking... Because a quote there he says is, like, they wrote... He even said, like, Daisy and what's-his-name know that they had good shit written out for them, but they didn't have any for me. And it's like, they don't know that. Fucking Daisy was just in an interview with Josh Gad where she's like...
Speaking of interviews, these things happened in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Man, what a bad couple of weeks for Disney.
where she was literally like, they thought maybe I could be related to Kenobi in Force Awakens, and then for a while I was nobody. But then when I got the script, JJ was like, you're a Palpatine, and I was like, okay, cool. But then 2 weeks later, JJ was like, well, maybe no, we're still thinking about it. And it's like...
it comes to light that she basically was deep into filming and she still hadn't had a clear answer.
She didn't have a clear answer as to what exactly. So it's like... I mean, I agree. Like, you got you definitely got the short end of the stick, John Boyega. But it ain't like they thought out anything much better for your supporting cast either. And then to say like they didn't give shit to Kelly Marie Tran. J.J. Abrams didn't give shit to Kelly Marie Tran. She got like 2-3 sentences.
90 seconds of screen time. 90 seconds.
So it's like he wants to come out and say how he didn't like what they did and a lot of the racial components that go along with it. And it's like, yeah, no, like I 100% agree. But then he's also playing he's playing defense for the people that are most responsible for that happening.
Mm-hmm.
And it just kind of comes off like, I don't know, like you can't play defense for the people that are most responsible for this issue that you clearly have, and you're coming out strong, but then you don't. It's very clear that his issue is just with The Last Jedi and what was given to, like, he won't say
the
it.
ever-present elephant in the room, isn't it?
Like, he won't say it specifically, and he won't call out Rian Johnson specifically, but it's very clear that's what it all comes down to.
Well, he didn't defend Rian Johnson.
Yeah, no. Like, and he literally said J.J. Abrams wasn't supposed to come back and fix this shit. You were cool with...
Fix this?
Yeah,
okay.
So you were cool with The Force Awakens. What was the one thing that happened between The Force Awakens and The Rise of Skywalker? This is The Last Jedi.
And the irony of it all is The Last Jedi gave him a character.
Yeah, and then that's where I struggle too, where it's like, overall, what you're saying and sort of the energy with which you're saying it and tenacity, so to speak, it's like, yeah, no, I agree. A lot of this, you were definitely shafted so badly in a lot of ways throughout this whole experience, but it seems like the only parts that you're trying to call out as how you were shafted were the few actual bright spots of your character in this whole trilogy. So it just makes me go like, I don't know. I agree with his overall message, and I love the fact that he speaks his mind. I think that's the way all of Hollywood should be. I think he should continue to speak what he feels, and in the hope. And he did say later, like, this isn't, what I said wasn't meant to be like a witch hunt. It was just to put it out there and shit. Hopefully shit's better in the future.
Unlike Ray Fisher?
No, Ray Fisher's hunting for some witches. Which, that's crazy. All of that's real crazy. It'll be really interesting to see how that comes out. But him, that's more specifically, he doesn't talk about his character. Like, that's like the other side of the coin. That's more specifically, I was treated badly by people on set, like on a one-on-one basis, and
Ray
the
Fisher,
powers
you
that
mean?
be. Yeah, Ray Fisher.
Yeah.
Whereas it's kind of the opposite with John Boyega, where it's like, he seems, again, maybe he comes out and says it, but I feel like if anything actually happened, he would have already come out and said it. It seems like he didn't, on a one-on-one personal basis, he didn't have any real issues with people. Like, again, he's already come out and defended J.J. Abrams, and despite really not liking what Ryan did with his character in The Last Jedi, he doesn't seem to be like, oh yeah, Ryan's a bad guy. Like, he literally said, like, it's not a witch hunt for these specific people. His issue seems to mostly be story-wise and character-wise and what he was given.
Oh my God, man. You know, I'm just... Oh my God.
And how it connects to his race, which again, a lot of it I do think does connect. There is a lot of racial undertones to the shitty way.
And there's no shortage of criticism against Disney, especially in that department. Let's be real. So I think they deserve it. You know,
like that Force Awakens
yeah.
shit, I think is really disgusting because you get. It's like, imagine like so many, because you saw how much the black community in the United States just went crazy for Black Panther. Imagine you market Black Panther, and then like halfway through it's like, psych, it's actually a Winter Soldier movie. Like, that's basically...
That's unforgivable.
But I mean, that's basically what they did with The Force Awakens.
Yeah.
They sold you on the idea of a black Jedi hero, and then they turn around and be like, but we tricked you. And it's like, not just because you trick me doesn't mean it's a positive. Stop it, J.J. Abrams. To hell with your mystery box bullshit. Stop. And I think that's pretty fucked up, especially to, again, John Boyega and his character as well. And then again, the worst shit is when they just completely shafted him in The Rise of Skywalker, where they gave him nothing to do. Like, to me, I thought his character arc was so obvious for The Rise of Skywalker, where he would in some ways lead a sort of stormtrooper rebellion and be sort of a leader and a hero in his own sense in that way. And to me, I thought the trajectory from, you know, a scared and just wanting to run away, defecting stormtrooper, to leading a stormtrooper rebellion, you know, cutting through that all the way to The Rise of Skywalker, and, you know, inspiring others in that way to fight back against said oppressors, was so obvious. But then The Rise of Skywalker came out, and I'm like, okay, maybe it's one of those things that was obvious to me, but just isn't to other people. But then you see Colin Trevorrow's his lead shit, and it's basically, it's obviously not perfect, but it's like on the same wavelength of like, yeah, like this is basically.
Isn't that the bitch? Like, the more like we get removed from, you know, the revelation of Abrams' horrible movie, at the very least, Trevorrow had the trajectory for these characters in the right direction.
Somewhat, yeah.
Right. Well, better than JJ, because JJ gave him nothing.
Literally nothing. You can tell they were rewriting the script from day to day.
I think they don't even need an admission. I feel like all the details that we know so far confirm that. But when you also think about, like, at the end of the movie ends and they kind of sort of imply he might be a Jedi. And so not only is the most interesting thing you can come up with is we'll make him a Jedi, but not really in this movie. But you just go back to the same thing that people thought you were going to give him in the first film, and you tease it, and you still don't give them that.
Yeah. And again,
where's the logic behind any of that? I'm just dumbfounded thinking about what they thought this was doing.
I on a personal level, I don't like the Finn character as a Jedi, because I feel like everyone's answer to a boring character is just to go put a lightsaber in their hand and say you fixed it.
1,000%.
But
and to be clear, just to be, I don't mean to be cutting you off, but I want to back you up with examples. Literally every response when this was trending on Twitter was, they should have made him a Jedi. They should have made him a Jedi. They should have made him a Jedi. Fuck Rian Johnson. They should have made him a Jedi. They should have made him a Jedi.
Yeah, but I guess my thing is, my thing is, I kind of don't blame them, because they were sold on that excitement back in The Force Awakens. Like that,
right. That
idea was put in their head.
Right.
So of course you're gonna want it and have it fulfilled, and then just to have it snatched away and be like, psych, actually, not at all. And it's like, well, fuck. Like, this is the whole reason I You sold me on this.
Yep.
So then why aren't you doing it? And again, if he was really supposed to be a Jedi, then you could have had him and Rey together discovering their Force sensitivity in The Force Awakens. It just goes back to, like, I don't know, why would you blame The Last Jedi when all the issues that people say that they have with this character in this film all originate in The Force Awakens?
To give more context, John Boyega, I feel, has given interviews at some point where he's explicitly thrown shade at his character's direction in Episode 8. And him saying that, I think we were talking about this, right, last year, where after the backlash, The Last Jedi, Boyega felt comfortable saying that he himself wasn't a fan of how his character was handled in Episode 8.
Yeah.
Is that what happened?
Yeah. And by the way, we've said this a million times. It's totally cool. Like, I think it's like
Mark Hamill.
Yeah,
hey.
Mark Hamill hates.
You know, can we just say one thing?
Uh-huh.
I feel bad for Ryan in a little bit because, like, he got so much resistant by everybody on that, not everybody, a lot of people on that set. Because I remember watching the documentary, the Director and the Jedi, and even his own costume guy was like, "Are you sure you want this? This doesn't really feel like Star Wars." Like, people were trying to give him lectures on what Star Wars is, and I feel like it must have been such a culture shock for everybody at Lucasfilm to have somebody actually understand Star Wars, because it seems like nobody else can figure it out. And it still leaves me bewildered. How the fuck did Kathy get along with him, with everybody else seemingly had creative, like, confrontations with him?
Because he was a good director. Like, that it seemed like the actual shooting of the film just went by so smoothly. Because
but isn't that crazy? There was so many, like, creative, like,
there was a lot
explosions.
Of creative differences, but as far as, like, the day-to-day, like, shooting, like, all of that was just so smooth. And I think that's, as a producer, like, that's kind of what you want. And if you have someone making movies for you, like, yeah, you don't want to deal with the headaches of, like, hey, we're over budget, everything's falling apart, we're going to need to extend the shooting days. We're going to need extensive rewrites. Like, you don't want to deal with that bullshit. You just want to be like, yeah, everything's on schedule, on time. Everything that we agreed on with the story should be. We're doing it. And it seems like that's what she got with Ryan.
And only Ryan.
Yeah, which I don't... Yeah, that's not too great. But yeah, my issue isn't that John Boyega hates his character in The Last Jedi and everything they did, and he feels that he got shafted and all that. Like, no, like, I'm very sympathetic to that, and, you know, I feel bad that he feels that way. But it's the only thing that really brings this up is that this interview, and you talk about, like, how he feels the racial aspect, how he feels he got shafted, and he's like, no, it wasn't. I'm not going to sit here and say it was an honor to be a great experience, because it wasn't a great experience. And it's like, okay, yeah, I agree overall, but when you're going to start talking about specific instances, I mean, that's when I just feel like that's when it just feels like, unfortunately, it comes down to difference in opinion of film. And at that point, because with, like, the Ray Fisher stuff, I'm not Ray Fisher, right? Like, I don't know the experience that he dealt with firsthand on that set. So if he tells me there's some bad shit going on, then I have no choice but to hear him out and go, like, fuck, like, I didn't know. Like, yeah, I gotta hear it out. But when you're telling me this character sucked, it's like, well, we're kind of on equal footing because we both equally saw the film with... And again, that's when it's just kind of down to difference in opinion, to where I go, I disagree. But again, overall, I do agree with his sentiment about how it was a bad experience doing those three films. And it comes down to a lot of things. It comes down to toxic, racist fans that treat him like shit.
Yeah.
It comes
the
down...
same people, by the way, who claimingly are, this is how wish-washy they are, because a lot of them are saying, like, you know what, John, you're right. Last Jedi does suck. So that's their only objective here, just to be real.
Yeah. They have no problem using him out of their hatred of The Last Jedi, but those same people turned on him real quick in a very racist way when he came out in support of Black Lives Matter. So it's like, they're not people that John should want in his corner, and I don't think he necessarily does. Like, he's just speaking his truth, which is all he can do. But people will, slimy individuals will come along and try and co-opt whatever he said to fit their agenda. But yeah, when you're talking about the toxic racist fans to the just shitty god-awful marketing and how they really fucked him over through the marketing, to just bad writing and bad overall direction for his character. He's right to be pissed about the way everything went down, and I'm 100% okay with him airing all that shit out. Again, the only disagreement is the details, as it usually is.
Yeah, the last thing I'll say to this is that I tell this to you all the time, I feel like I am kind of crazy, because there are people out there, critics who I respect deeply, who are they come off as good people that love Last Jedi, or like it at the very least. But most of them still are like, well, yeah, Finn didn't really have a character arc, a story arc in episode 8. And I'm like, look, I don't care how you feel about whether or not Finn's arc was good in episode 8. But it's becoming a little bit aggravating when people are just flat out denying the existence of an arc. I don't care whether or not you think it's good or not, but there's an arc there. And I feel like people are kind of blind to it, or is it just me?
No, you're not alone. It's been like this since we walked out of the movie theater, where everyone's saying, like, even the people that love the movie are like, yeah, but Canto Bight sucks. And I'm one of the few people that's like, no, I really like Canto Bight. We're alone on an island. I'm sorry to tell you this. We're alone on
Ogg 2, basically, with all the porks.
When it comes to this, yeah. I hope John Boyega gets the roles that he's looking for, though, because he is a great actor.
I hope so too. He is. And also Daisy Ridley. I think she's great too, and she deserves to get more work.
I was so heartbroken when she's like, the offers dried up after The Last Jedi, and I'm like, no.
Rise of Skywalker.
Sorry, right after the Rise of Skywalker. It's like I hope. I mean, obviously, what's his name? Poe Dameron is getting work.
Oscar Isaac and Adam Driver are getting a lot of work.
But I really hope that the other half of that, those four, get work too. Not Daisy Ridley. Fuck. This is racist probably of me, but I wanted to say Chloe Bennett.
What? Why do you think of Chloe Bennett out of nowhere?
I don't know. But Kelly Marie Tran, she got the lead in Raya, the new animated Disney film. So that's great. I think that's great. So I really do hope that they all get work and get meaningful work.
Yeah.
And they have good
It's so disappointing because Daisy Ridley, I think, was really a gem of those movies. And I think you saw it, I mean, just in the performance. And I think what's heartbreaking about that last movie is that that the writing is just not there and it's ruining everything. But man, she's giving it
everything, despite not knowing what's going on from scene to scene, it seems. Yeah.
It sucks to be an actor. You have no control. I mean, you shouldn't probably have control of your character, but you don't know if it's going to turn out good or bad,
It's literally, what sucks is it's your face plastered on that poster.
Not the directors.
Yeah. And not the writers, but you just have to give your faith completely over to these people and just hope that it's not shit. and you don't really have much creative control.
Right.
It's really...
I think, right. You're right. I mean, I think what shit is that, what if, what's his name? Chris Terrio keeps getting work, but Daisy Ridley doesn't. I mean, that's just a fucking crime right there.
The old mantra, you fail upwards in Hollywood.
Yeah. Before we move off entirely off Star Wars, you want to discuss Mandalorian real quick? In terms of like...
Don't you want to wait till there's a trailer?
Oh.
It should come any day now because it premieres in October.
Okay, so we'll discuss the quotes then there?
Yeah.
All right.
Because there might be a hint in the trailers as to what that might be.
Oh, I think there may be a big reveal.
Yeah.
I think there may be a big fucking reveal from what I'm hearing. So, yeah. All right, we'll save Mandalorian. Let's get to Mulan. Should we talk about the controversy first or the movie first?
Just say the controversy, because yeah.
So for years and years now, since the announcement of Mulan, because of who they cast, the lead actor said complimentary things. She's from Hong Kong, about the police, and if you know what's going on over there with Hong Kong, she's been highly criticized for that. We haven't talked about that at all on the show because I think Peter and I may be giving her a little bit more of a charitable point of view, and that is you really can't say anything in opposition to the government in Hong Kong because they'll make you disappear and they'll kill you. And considering what's come to light in the last couple of days, I feel it's fairly obvious that the actor who played Mulan did that for her own safety and well-being, not just for her and her family.
And maybe she does believe it, but like we'll never know. Not really.
Right.
So it's
So yeah, it was a complicated situation, but not I mean, we don't want to say that we excuse it, but we're a little bit understanding of it. And I mean, at the same time, we're not trashing the people who are boycotting that issue. I mean, it is a very volatile issue, especially now since, you know, police brutality is trending these days more than ever. So yeah, that controversy has been with this movie, you know, through and through. But the big thing that happened, and it kind of exploded over the weekend, was in the credits of Mulan, as it was debuting on Disney Plus, it was discovered that Disney had filmed in an area of China that features concentration camps for Muslims. It was a credit to thank them for allowing them to film in those beautiful vistas in China where Muslims are literally held in modern day concentration camps, and in some cases not chemically castrated, they are sterilized. They're sterilized, I feel, in some cases.
It's some World War II Nazi concentration camp shit. It really is. Like, they're
right.
Not to sugarcoat it. Like, that's just to get...
No, it's what it is what it is. It's just hard to believe because, I mean, it's 2020 and some people may not even be aware that this stuff was... I'll be honest, I wasn't even aware that this is actually a thing because, I mean, I don't really follow China all that well. But everyone is rightfully blowing up at them. Both the political left and the political right are angry at them. The right are angry at them because they are accusing Disney of promoting Chinese propaganda. They, of course, don't care about the Muslims in the concentration camps, but we'll put that to the side. But the left does, and they're, you know, blasting Disney for a violation of human rights issues at that point. What a fucking disaster. This is a full-blown scandal. And Disney has not said a word about this whatsoever, but like when you put this side by side with the other story that broke this week, and that is that Disney is intentionally hiding the COVID numbers of their own workforce at Downtown Disney, which we should also note open to mass fanfare from that community, although we don't hear nothing about the fact that the workers are literally disappearing. Nobody knows what exactly the situation are with COVID. So when you just look at the big picture, Disney comes off as a fucking disgusting organization. And some people may be charitable, like, well, I mean, Disney does work with China. They have these deep relationship with them, and they did want to film there. But at some point, my response would be, you got to know when to, draw the line. And agreeing to work with people who are enforcing concentration camps of any kind, I think is fucking evil. And in that area, I would have understood, yeah, you have a fucking blue wall, a soundstage, and an alley. Just go back there and do it. It's not worth aligning yourself or being put in the position to thank people who are running modern day concentration camps. I'm appalled. I'm grateful that people are blowing back at this. It's a fucking disgrace. It's an outrage. And it just adds a whole new layer of disgust. If there could be one, but it is there now.
I mean, yeah, this is typical corporate action. China's a big moneymaker, so you need that Chinese box office, so you ignore whatever other bad shit they're doing. And it doesn't matter ultimately. You're just there to think about the bottom line if you're Disney. So, yeah, I mean, this is all bad, but it's not new.
Right.
And I think that's important to talk about. I will say, it's what makes it so funny is that, to just sort of transition into the movie, is this film is so clearly an American studio trying to make a Chinese blockbuster. Like, it's so clearly that. It kind of reminds me of like foreign filmmakers or foreign films when they're trying to make like an American movie, so to speak, and how it's similar but off in a weird way. One of the best ways to sort of compare is do you remember Once Upon a Time in Hollywood? When he went over to do those Italian films.
Italian films.
Italian films. Yeah, because there's a lot. That was one of that was one of the things back in the day, like Italian films. Well, spaghetti westerns, obviously, but sort of Italian films.
Italian westerns is an interesting combo.
Yeah, and it's basically an attempt to ape the Hollywood machine filmmaking, but because you're from a different country and all that, it's the way it translates is slightly, it just seems slightly off and slightly different. And they even mention about how in the film, how everyone in those Italian films would say the lines in their own language, and then at the end everything is dubbed to the same language. It's just a weird different way that they did that. And with Mulan, so much of it you can tell is like, okay, they're trying to literally make a Chinese blockbuster, like it literally was made by the Chinese filmmaking companies, but it's still an American film.
All the writers and the director are white.
Yeah, which
it's clear, but if you want to put
Asians somewhere, the writing room is probably one of the biggest ones you would want, especially if you're trying to court Chinese moviegoers, which this movie is literally made for China first, and I think American audience is second.
I thought over the weekend what would have made a vast improvement over this, I've only seen one of her films, Lulu Wang from The Farewell. Oh, if she was given this kind of a movie, wow,
she's a great filmmaker.
Oh, one thing before we get into the film itself, that also adds on to this issue with China. Disney had such high hopes for Mulan and it being a big blockbuster in China, obviously pre-COVID. It's gotten to a whole, I think there was another bomb that dropped today, and that is that Chinese authorities have told major media outlets not to cover Walt Disney Company's release of Mulan in an order issued after the controversy erupted overseas of the film's links with the region of the concentration camps. Yeah, they're literally telling the papers and the press, you're not covering Mulan, you're not talking about it, which that's kind of a death sentence if you want to get any kind of headlines. So it really is it's a fucking disaster for Disney with what they were trying to do with Mulan. This is like the worst case scenario.
You know what's so funny? Is that's kind of the same shit that happened to them back in the 1998 Mulan. Is that I think
did the same mistakes twice.
They I don't know, Disney was intertwined somehow with like the Dalai Lama or
oh really
or something with what is it, Taiwan or
right,
I think it's Taiwan. And you know how there's bad blood.
There's a lot of bad fucking blood. At my own graduation, the Dalai Lama was supposed to speak at my graduation for UC San Diego,
really?
But because we have a lot, 50% of the student population is Asian. There was a lot of uproar and people protesting his speaking at the graduation.
Okay,
yeah.
So yeah,
I'm aware.
So I guess the Chinese. I don't know what else to call them, but like the propaganda film board or whatever only allow in 10.
Oh wait, you know what? He was
supposed.
Hold on. He was supposed to speak. He canceled because of that. So yeah, he didn't. Just in case that the Dalai Lama at my graduation, that didn't happen. So
I mean, yeah that sucks. But yeah, China only lets in like 10 foreign films every year, and I don't know what Disney tried to do to try and get them to be like get 1998 Mulan in, but they did something whatever to get back in the good graces of China, and they allowed Mulan in, but I don't think they like covered it, and it played like a year later after it had already released in the States and all that. So like pirating was already going on. Very similar to this instance, in which by the time it's released in China,
there are already widely available pirated copies of this version of Mulan.
Yeah.
And it's not even open in theaters yet.
I think they should probably just give up on Mulan for Chinese audience. It seems to not be working out.
Yeah, this isn't hard though. It really isn't hard, but they always find ways to just repeatedly fail on just about every level.
Yeah.
Really.
Speaking of failing on every level, the film...
yeah, so we told you we saw Mulan. It was a fucking bummer. I kind of prepared myself because I let myself get excited a few weeks before. Oh, okay, you know what? Fuck it. There's some good stuff coming out about it, good reactions. Maybe they finally got something. I still wasn't expecting a great movie by any means, but something good.
Mm-hmm.
The night before, I watched Chris Stuckman's review, and he kind of revealed the whole thing about chi. And I'm like, fuck me, fuck off, fuck you. And so I was kind of preparing for already elements that will be underwhelming, if not problematic, from a creative standpoint with this movie. That being said, it has perhaps some of the best stuff in the Disney live action remake sphere, and it still isn't good.
This was it. Like,
me too. I whatever you're about to say, I'm with you right now.
I'm done.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm done.
The live action Disney remakes, whatever. Like, I don't care what they throw out there. They can't do it. They just can't do it.
No.
They're fucking awful. They really are. The one thing I will applaud this film at is trying to be different, but the only reason they even tried to be different was because with the other films, they were much more American centric, and they could use the nostalgia bait to get the money and pull in seats. Whereas with Mulan, they were going to try and use Chinese audiences to get the majority of their money. And the Chinese audiences didn't very much like the 1998 one. So that's why they're like, okay, we're going to cater to the Chinese audiences.
And it ended up being worse.
And it ended up, I mean, whichever way they go to try and pander to, it ends up sucking. Because Beauty and the Beast and all those other remakes sucked too. But with this one, it was just everything about it was so devoid of life and anything interesting. The main character was...
Oh my God. What character?
There was no... She can't act. She really seems like one of those like models that's only in movies because they're pretty.
Mm-hmm.
But like, you know, they can't do anything. So like, you don't give them a lead role. you give them a smaller role where they just have to be there and look pretty. Because she can't act. Yeah, she can't act. Like, she has one expression the entire film. It's stoic. And that maybe she was directed that way. Like, every scene looks stoic. Something happy happened, look stoic. Something sad happened, look stoic, because you're tough. Maybe that's true. I think, because I don't know. Fuck. I mean... If that is true, then I take back my criticisms of said actress. But it doesn't end with her. In comparison to the 1998 film, where all of the side characters just feel so...
Which I saw again this weekend, by the way. And I've been listening to the soundtrack, too. Film may have been... Chinese audiences may not have appreciated it, and they may have looked at it as pandering and offensive. But oh my God, it's so fucking frustrating. It's so looking at that movie, and it had all the life that this one we're talking about was missing on every level.
Mulan as a character is so interesting and fun, and
she's alive.
You care
she's
about her.
She's full of life.
Yes.
She's personality. She's like, oh my God, go ahead.
Like, the family dynamic is so interesting and well done, and you care about it. Her struggle throughout the film is done so much better in the 1998 film. Her relationship with her comrades that she bonds with in training is so much better. Like, I haven't seen Mulan in a while, but I like saw clips of it, and like, I'm just thinking about like the avalanche scene in the movie in comparison to the one in the animated film, where like, it just looks so epic, and the music and the camera's swooping in down as they're riding down, and she's desperately trying to get the firework. And in this one, it's like she's stoic and badass, and she has like she tricks them into firing the fire cannonball at themselves with ease, and it's just so lame in comparison, and just not done anywhere nearly as well. I don't know. Maybe there's specifics we can talk about, but on the whole, it just wasn't good. It wasn't good. Nice costumes. there was some full big sets that looked really nice.
Visuals,
Yeah.
the locations, well, you know, the price they paid for going there, but they look pretty. Here's the thing. I think I'm perhaps more upset at this than Lion King because I expected Lion King to be shit. And then there's just a little bit more disappointment with Mulan because you saw it, there were places where this could have been good. But again, they just deliver something so aggressively inferior across the board. I'm done with these movies. I'm done. And you know what? Like, because when you think of a live action adaptation of Mulan, it could have worked. This is one of the ones where you could have done something interesting with a live action Mulan series. You could have turned it into like a traditional Chinese, or do your action blockbuster thing or whatever, and make it entirely divorced from the animated movie. But no, even then you can't do it. Like, to me, not only am I done with the live action remakes at Disney, I want Alan Horn to go away. I'm done with him. There was a time before him where Disney could make good live action movies. That's over. There hasn't been a good one in a long fucking time. And I'm tired of wasting my time with him and his bullshit. Like, to me, this was such... Oh my God. It could have been, you know, worsened by the fact that I could barely hear it, but I was so disinterested by the time we got to the halfway... I mean, not even the halfway, but a quarter into it. Like, I was liking the first 5 minutes. But then by the time we get to the halfway point, I'm like, oh my God, please let this thing be over already. Everything is just so pathetic. It's so fucking pathetic. I just don't understand. Like, I know making movies is hard, but these decisions are just so elementary. Like, no shit. I literally felt Alan Horn right on the script and Nick Caro, the director. The Chi. Make that Star Wars. Make it the Force. We got to sell this to a franchise.
Well, it seems like it's Disney has almost regressed as far as progressivism goes. Like, that Mulan 1998 film was significantly more progressive than this film.
Yeah.
Because it's just... Mulan was just such a good character in that 1998 film. She felt so well-rounded. And with this film, she's literally a blank slate that's just born uber powerful. And I guess she's just kind of exists to be the weapon.
There's nothing challenging to her.
I don't know.
She already has all the power.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand how people who are writing can't understand how this takes away everything interesting about her character. It gives her no obstacles. None whatsoever. This isn't that complicated to understand.
Yeah, it's just bad. It's bad all around. And then the changes they do make are just baffling. I don't know.
All right, so I guess their version of Mushu was that phoenix bird that would fly around.
It's just a bird.
What the fuck was that? And, you know, the thing with what they did with Chi, they made that into the Force. And I asked you when we were watching this, is there some mythology, you know, some Chinese legend where the Chi operates like the Force? Because I thought it was just some kind of an energy thing. And I was right. And I just can't help but wonder if that's going to come off even more offensive to Chinese audiences. Like, this is really how you see us? Really? You're taking Chi, which is supposed to be this energy thing, and it is to be taken seriously, and you're turning that into the fucking Force from Star Wars, which, if you haven't noticed, China doesn't give a fuck about Star Wars. You might want to take a hint there, Disney.
Yeah, it's how do I put this? So much of what they do new is just bafflingly adds nothing.
Awful. Oh yeah, it's awful.
But it's awful, but it also adds nothing.
Yeah.
Like the witch character is.
Oh, God,
I kind of get what they try to do with it, but it's just weird and ends up being really nothing.
But of course, it's sloppily handled and it goes nowhere.
Yeah.
And the execution was terrible.
I don't know. I didn't like it. Also, despite it obviously being live action and fairly big sets and big costumes and all that, on a scale, it still looked so much smaller than the animated film. Because, like, I'm talking about when you saw these thousands of writers writing down, and then the snow and all of that, and then at the climax, right, when they're having the celebration, and they sneak in and try and kill the emperor or capture him. Here, it's like a small little battalion of bad guys. And it's very, because it's supposed to be like all of China needs protection, but there's maybe like 20 bad guys. I don't know, like it's not a lot.
I feel like we've done this review literally 7 fucking times at this point, from Lion King to Beauty and the Beast to this to Aladdin. It's like, well, no shit, this is what happens every single time. You take something from animation, take it into live action, and it feels smaller and less grand. That's what happens. That's what you lose in the translation. That's why those movies were intended for animation, not for live action. God, this is getting me angry.
Oh, shoot. Accidentally hit the thing. Yeah, I don't know if there's much to discuss. All I can really think of
I'm done with this review. I have nothing else to say other than, you know what? I refuse to see any more Disney live action remakes. This was the last fucking straw.
This was the last one where I was like, well, maybe there's something here. But it's not even like okay. It's just bad. It's
bad and it's boring.
It's bad and boring, and like every single one of these live action remakes, it just takes everything good and interesting about the original animated film, sucks out all the life, and then just displays the same imagery but realistically looking and ugly, and then that's it. And this was it for me. Like, no more. I honestly don't even know what future ones they're making, but I don't care.
The next one?
Mm-hmm.
I know the next one is.
What's the next one?
And it's going to be awful. And because it's my favorite Disney animated movie, I'm not going to watch it.
Oh, fuck.
I wasn't planning on watching. It's going to be Little Mermaid.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm not watching it. I'm
not watching it.
It's
because I know what it's going to be.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same shit as this was, as Lion King, as Aladdin, as Beauty and the Beast.
No mas. Yeah, that's my review.
You can fuck off. Fuck off. That's my review. Fuck off. I'm done with your shit. You know what's funny? This was so short, but because I was told by Alexis they were recording Fantasy Fair on this very night. She and Kyle. It may go down in history as the shortest episode of the Fantasy Fair. The conversation only lasted 45 minutes.
The Mulan review?
Yeah.
Oh man, I might want to listen to that one then.
And I can tell Kyle really didn't like that movie. So.
I mean, neither did we.
No. All right. Well, thank you, Peter, for being here. Thank you all for listening. We have a lot of content every Thursday and Sunday under our big red spotlight here. More content coming at you with The Legend of Korra. After that, we'll be talking about Mike Flanagan's Haunting series on Netflix. We have commentaries coming up for, Hallows Eve and all that stuff. To the Table might be coming back with more emphasis on horror. And Fantasy Fair is gonna give you... It's funny because we had a Mulan month planned for Fantasy Fair, but, I don't think... The good thing is the best is to come, because the next part of the month will be a retrospect on the real Mulan, the 1998 animated movie.
Yeah.
So there's that. Thank you all for listening. We'll be back next week. Bye-bye.